Hello and welcome to this interview with Esmee Gummer for the Braincare Podcast. Esmee is a fitness fanatic and well-known personal trainer, and we'll be covering how she built a positive mindset, overcame extreme adversity, and of course, how she copes with her mental health. So, let's set the scene. Esmee, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Esmee. Well, you know that already. I have been in the fitness industry now for about 11 years and spent about 6 of those years in London. I suppose by trade, I'm a personal trainer and fitness instructor, but then I started realizing that I had a sort of different message and that I preferred to train people from a mindset point of view rather than a body goals point of view. And it's been a message that I've been preaching over and over and over for, I'd say, the past, I'd say ever since I've been in fitness. And it's been something that I've not given up on. So I've delved a lot into mental health, mindset, wellness, well-being. And yeah, I'm currently working a lot in wellness. So that's where I'm at the moment.
A few years ago, you went in for a routine operation and it didn't quite go to plan. So, what happened for our audience that might not know?
About 6 weeks before I started dance college, I had a small hernia in my groin. So I decided I was going to get it fixed before I started my 3 years of dance college, which would have been very intense training. And I went in to have a small hernia repair, and unfortunately, I reacted to either the anaesthetic or the anti-sickness drugs, which caused seizures, which then caused me to become paralysed. So when I first came round, it was a lot more severe. I had some speech sort of problems, and my memory was a bit all over the place, and I couldn't really use my upper body much. But by the time they were able to let me get up and start using my legs again, they had to do some tests first, so just check my spine and things like that before I was allowed to move. But once I was allowed to move, I was just put into intense rehabilitation to learn to walk again on parallel bars. And then from there, I left the hospital in a wheelchair and carried on my rehabilitation at home. And I did it through dance because they gathered that maybe dance would help for muscle memory and things like that. So I did that, and yeah, it took, I'd say, the best part of a year to fully feel like I was comfortable to move again, I suppose.
If we can take a moment to go back to the first day.
Yeah.
So, what is it like waking up and finding out you're paralyzed?
It's quite a strange feeling, actually, because I know a lot of people, when they have like an accident, it's sort of a shock. So they have the accident, they wake up, they hear the news. With me, it was quite surreal, because where I'd had these seizures, and they'd sedated me quite heavily as well to try and stop the seizures, because the seizures were happening. They happened for 8 hours, so they were sedating me, putting sedation into my stomach. So the only way I can describe it is like sobering up after being drunk. So sobering up, and things are starting to slowly make more sense. So I never really had the shock factor of, Esmee, you're paralyzed, and me go, oh my god, what happened? So that's very like faded for me. The moment that I had it was because I'd turned 18 by a month, I was considered an adult. And had this had happened a month before, I would have been 17 on the children's ward, and I actually would have had 24-hour access to like my parents being there. So from 9 p.m. all the way through to the next day, and most of the morning, when the doctors would come around, I was on my own. But I was still, to me, I was still a child. I was still very much a teenager. 18, I don't think you're an adult. We like to think we are at 18, but we're definitely not. So I think that's where I had that moment where one night, it's probably the first time in my life I felt and understood anxiety, the sort of feeling of like doom, and where you feel like you can't breathe and you panic. And I think the worst part for me was, I encourage people now when they have anxiety to move and get up and move around, and I couldn't. And I think that was the irony in it, was I was experiencing anxiety and all I wanted to do was stand up and shake it off, and I couldn't shake it off.
When your world revolves around movement, specifically yours, like going into dance school, that's your life, and your ability, like you just said, to crack out of the feelings of anxiety or your usual coping mechanisms basically taken away from you.
Yeah.
What did you literally do at that time?
Some of the moments that I went through, I still use now. And I can honestly say, Dan, that it was probably the first moment in my life that I became friends with myself. And I'm so grateful for it, because some people, it takes a lot longer. To make friends with myself at 18 is actually very, very lucky. I work with like young adults, and my sister's 22 and she's definitely not friends with herself yet. And I still have friends that probably aren't. And I actually still have people in my life who are older than me or in generations above me in my family that maybe still haven't made friends with themselves. The thing I practiced was, it was the understanding that I had myself. And I was quite I wasn't babied by my family, but I babied myself. And that was growing up. My way of getting attention was to baby myself, so to need help. And I think that was my way of feeling love, was to baby myself and get a response like that. And it made me realize, my biggest thing that I realized was that we spend a lot of our time and our problems passing them on to other people and asking for advice. Whether we ring our parent or we speak to a friend or we Google it, we never just want to sit and listen to ourselves. We have to have an answer, and we have to give someone else responsibility so that we don't have to do it. Because if we give someone else responsibility, one, it alleviates the pain of going through it, and two, you can blame them, you can blame the other person. And to be forced to only have my words and myself was one of the biggest things I learned, and I still use now. I still I'm the first person I speak to every day. Walk past the mirror and just say, "You're right." And I'm like, "Yeah, are you?" Yeah. And it sounds so silly, but I'm the first person to ask me if I'm okay every day. That moment is something that I like learned to be like the inner child. And I actually did a TED talk about it. It was my first TED talk was about the inner child, which was, I believe that any sort of emotion like anxiety or fear or sadness or anger inside us, frustration, things like that, is our inner child. And the way I found that was because when I was lying in this hospital bed, and if we go back to that moment where I couldn't do anything about it, I was paralyzed. I had this anxiety, and the feeling that I felt, I could only relate it to being a child. When I was laying in bed, I was about 6 years old, and I realized that moment, I think we all remember it, where you go, oh my God, the world's going to end, and my parents are going to die, and I'm going to die. We don't live forever. The only way I could describe it is you'd feel sick. And that must have been anxiety, but maybe we wasn't aware because we were young. And it was that
Completely.
feeling when I was 6 years old. If I had that, I'd go downstairs to my parents. I'd get out of bed and I'd make some sort of excuse to go down and be like, can I have a water? Or I don't feel well, I've got a tummy ache, because it was a way of deviating away from it. And again, it's what I explained, that people still do that now as adults, right? They ring their friend, or they ask for advice, or they Google it, or whatever it is. And when I was laying in the hospital bed and I had this feeling, that's when I went, this isn't you. This is your younger self. This is your inner child panicking. And there's no one here. Your parents aren't here. So you've got two options. You can become the inner child and press the nurse button, or ring your mum and try and get help. Or you can literally step out and nurse your inner child. And it was the moment that I realized that you're so lucky to have yourself on demand. If my mates want my advice, they have to call me and put in my number, or text me and make sure I'm available, or meet me. I'm well lucky, because I don't have to do that. I can just go, Ez, what shall we do? And that moment for me was, I took that on with me for the rest of my life. When I come to a crossroad in my life and a worry and this, before I reach out, I reach in and say, Ez, what do you think? What can we do?
Are there, certain things you do or that you suggest to other people to try to talk with more confidence and love, and also to respond to the negative Esmee that I'm sure does exist in there, no matter how hard you work?
Yeah. And do you know what the thing is about it is, the negative Esmee still is in there. And that's number one tip in answer to that question, is accept that you can't get rid of negativity. You can't get rid of it. That's the first thing that I had to do, was accept I couldn't just get rid of being paralyzed. It was part of my reality. And I couldn't just get rid of my bad thoughts. It was part of my reality. The difference is if you let them consume you, or if you learn from them. And this is the thing, what I get quite a lot is people say to me, oh, it's all right for you because you're just a very positive person, or it's all right for you because you're just very confident, or it's all right for you because, you know, you have self-love. And the fact of the matter is, it's not all right for anyone, and it's not all right for me. Everybody's got their own story. You know, number one is accepting that it's there, and number two is comparison is the biggest killer of joy. And if I laid in that bed and compared myself to my friend who went off to dance college, of course I'm going to feel horrendous. Now, if I look at my journey that I went on and where my friend went, you couldn't even compare us. We've both just done a completely different things. However, we're both doing well at them. I call it like the but people. It's like, how many times in a day and how many times have you today butted? How many times have you said, yeah, but it's all right for them because they're just naturally really positive. Yeah, but it's all right for them because they've got rich parents, so they've had a good upbringing. Yeah, but it's all right for them because they know the manager, so they got promoted. How many times have you said it today, this week, in a month? You've got to stop butting because you don't know what anyone's been through. And had you not known my story, you could meet me and think she's so positive and happy and she's self-love and all of this. But then I go, oh, I actually was paralyzed when I was 18. And immediately people go, oh my God, wow. And they change their perception of me because I've had a backstory to it. The best way to describe it in this day and age that we live in is you can go on social media and you could see someone post 5K run, done, tick. And you can look and go, oh, I'm useless because I've sat on my sofa all night and they've gone out and done a 5K. They're better than me. But what we don't understand is the hour before the 5K, we don't know what it took them. We don't know if that person woke up, was crying in bed. It took them half an hour to even put their clothes on to go on that run. It took them another 10 minutes to talk to themselves saying, you can do this. It took them another 5 minutes just to tie their shoelaces and untie them and tie them. But we see the end product, we see the 5K run done, and we immediately, one, use it as an excuse to say that we're not good enough, so we're not going to bother. And two, use it as a comparison point to where we currently are to then make ourselves feel bad as well. And that's something that I tend to do now, and I try and encourage my friends to do and my clients to do, is I imagine I'm sitting on a train in my life. I imagine I'm on a train and I'm looking out the window and things are going past the window, and good things are going to go past and bad things are going to go past. And we've both equally, whether good things are going past, good things are happening in our life or bad, we should take them, enjoy them, or learn from them, and then let them go. So bad things are going to come into our life. We take them in, we hold on to these bad things, but then we let them go. And we should do it with good things as well. When very nice experiences happen, or positive things happen in our life, or we get promoted, or we make some money, or we meet someone, or this, or we have a really fun time, we go on holiday, we should take them in and equally let them go too. Because if we don't let go of them, that's again where we leave ourselves in a comparison point where we will never feel happy again, because it will never feel as good as that. So for me, it was about being happy in what I was given and what I had, and I could still reach forward for new things, as long as I could say, I'm just happy to be on my feet. I'm just happy I can walk. I'm just happy I can run. By doing that was what enabled me to be positive, that people call me, you're so positive, you're so content, you're so happy, because I was happy in my reality.
So if someone wanted to cultivate positive mindset like you are, like an attitude towards confidence and looking at life on the sunny side, what would your top 3 tips you'd say to them be?
When something bad happens, actually let it happen and get in a mood about it. Like cry, shout, scream. Being positive doesn't mean that something bad happens and you smile about it. That's not positive. That's not strength, right? This is what strength is. I always say, number one, this is tip 1, you can let it ruin your lunch, but don't let it ruin your dinner. Tip number 2 would definitely be the comparison point. Do not compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 13. I think thirdly, I'd say opportune moment is a really good one to go on. If I've got some good news to share right now with all of you, and I'm so excited to share it, but Dan, you're in the middle of like maybe texting someone and somebody else is having a conversation, and I burst in and I'm like, guess what, this happened. Really naturally the reaction I'm going to get is Dan's going to go, oh, cool, and go back to what he was doing, and the person having the conversation go, oh, wow, but go back to what they were doing. And then I'm going to feel negative about that, and then I'm going to start overthinking it. I'm going to think I'm not good and they don't care and nobody likes me and all of this. But actually it wasn't the right moment, because I burst in on somebody somebody else's time. Now, if I came in and I said, Dan, have you got a minute? And you said, hang on, let me just send this text. And I waited 1 minute of your life to then get the reaction of, this happened. Oh my God, wow, let's talk about it. Good for you. I then am getting dopamine. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling empowered because I shared something that I feel good about with somebody who is giving me the same energy back. If you look at something as broad as a relationship or someone that you really fancy that hasn't texted you back, whether they text you back in 5 minutes or in 2 hours, the text message is going to say the same thing. Opportune moment is that when it comes through, it's meant to come through then. So just be patient and trust that.